deeper than DNA, more fundamental than molecules or quarks. At our living core, we are wholeness and transfiguring love. We often forget that power, becoming lonely or resentful, comparing ourselves to others, acting out of our fears rather than living our glory. Occasionally, we rouse from our trance to remember our wholeness. For a time, we embody unsentimental love. We make efforts to wake others and to remain fully present ourselves. Our lives and our time here together are made sacred by our striving. For the next hour and for the rest of our lives, may we be more aware of the spirit of life evolving through and among us. So may we be.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. We are so glad you are with us, whether you are watching us now on YouTube or whether you will be watching us on YouTube later on in the week. I'm Kathy Smith. It is my pleasure and privilege to be your Director of Family Ministries. I'm here in the building today with Mike in the treehouse and Lee Hartman on the piano, and Leslie Runnels is running chat for us. I had a couple of things I wanted to let you all know about. Three of them precisely. We have 3 ways for you to party with us this December to celebrate the holidays. Today we're still doing our drive-through, and we'll share a little bit more information about that. But if you have one of these, or a paper chain, please bring it to us so we can decorate the tree this week. Staff will be decorating it on Tuesday. There'll be a Zoom link that you can watch if you would like. We are going to have some virtual caroling on December the 6th and December the 13th. Thank you to Lee Hartman, our music director. And then on the 18th, we usually play music bingo on the 3rd Friday of every month, and Mike Cavell is putting together a playlist of holiday songs. We'd love to have you come play bingo with us, or just have a holiday dance party to what's likely to be some great music. And I believe there's a video from Nathan with a little more information about the drive-through.
Oh, hello there. I was just decorating what is definitely the church's Christmas tree with, for some reason, blinds over our square circle window, and I'm wearing a dress shirt for some reason. I'm just glad to welcome you to this decorating that we're doing definitely at the church right now. Today, if you're watching this recorded, I don't know, depends on when you're watching it, but Sunday, today, from 2 to 4, we also have a cat now at the church. From 2 to 4, we're going to have a drive-through where you can come drop off your ornaments. We have Advent Wreaths if you want to pick them up. And we need people to do part of the pageant. So if you are interested or able, pull up to the church, tell us you want to be a part of the pageant. We'll give you filming instructions. You'll have till Wednesday to film your part and send it in. That's it. All right, I'm going to keep decorating this definitely church Christmas tree.
Some of you may remember me talking about this book last month, Braiding, Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kemmerer, a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. Robin, who I feel on a first-name basis with now, shares a story of giving a lecture at a private college where tuition ran upwards of $40,000 a year. She told them a traditional story of years when the corn harvests were so plentiful that the caches were full. The fields had been so generous with the villagers that the people scarcely needed to work. So they didn't. Hoes leaned against a tree, idle. The people became so lazy that they let the time for corn ceremonies go by without a single song of gratitude. They began to use the corn in ways the three sisters had not intended when they gave the people corn as a sacred gift of food. They burned it for fuel when they couldn't be bothered to cut firewood. The dogs dragged it off from the untidy heaps the people made instead of storing the harvest in secure granaries. No one stopped the kids when they kicked the ears around the village in their games. Saddened by the lack of respect, the corn spirit decided to leave, to go where she would be appreciated. At first, the people didn't even notice, but the next year, the cornfields were nothing but weeds. The caches were nearly empty, and the grain had been left untended and was moldy and mouse-chewed. There was nothing to eat. The people sat about in despair, growing thinner and thinner. When they abandoned gratitude, the gifts abandoned them. One small child walked out from the village and wandered for hungry days until he found the corn spirit in a sunlit clearing in the woods. He begged her to return to his people. She smiled kindly at him and instructed him to teach his people the gratitude and respect that they had forgotten. Only then would she return. He did as she asked, and after a hard winter without corn, to remind them of the cost, she returned to them in the spring. Some of Robin's students yawned as they heard this story, as they could not imagine such a thing. The aisles of the grocery stores are always well stocked. At the reception afterwards, the students filled their styrofoam plates with the usual fare. They had cheese and crackers, a profusion of cut vegetables, and buckets of dip. There was enough food to feast a small village. The leftovers were swept into trash bins conveniently located next to the tables. Robin shares that one student, a beautiful young girl with dark hair tied up in a headscarf, was hanging back from the discussion waiting her turn. When nearly everyone had left, she approached Robin, gesturing with an apologetic smile at the wasted remains of the reception. "I don't want you to think that no one understands what you were saying," she said. "I do. You sound like my grandmother back in my village in Turkey. I will tell her she must have a sister here in the U.S. The honorable harvest is her way too. In her house, we learned that everything we put in our mouths, everything that allows us to live, is a gift of another life. I remember lying with her at night and she made us thank the rafters of her house and the wool blankets we slept in. My grandmother wouldn't let us forget that these are all gifts, which is why you take care of everything, to show respect for that life. In my grandmother's house, we were taught to kiss the rice. If a single grain fell to the ground, we learned to pick it up and kiss it, to show we meant no disrespect in wasting it. The student told Robin that when she came to the U.S., the greatest culture shock she experienced was not language or technology, but waste. Her student said, "I've never told anyone before, but the cafeteria made me sick because of the way people treated the food. What people throw away here would feed my village for days. I could not speak to anyone of this. No one would understand to kiss the grain of rice."
This morning's story is Ojali Helika, We Are Grateful, by Tracy Sorrell, born and raised in the Cherokee Nation, and illustrated by Franny Lissac. Tracy Sorrell writes, "Many of us still observe the ancestral and ceremonial ways of life. We also live and work in the modern non-Cherokee world. We work to maintain a balance between these two worlds." And the story begins. Cherokee people say Ojali Helika to express gratitude. It is a reminder to celebrate our blessings and reflect on our struggles, daily, throughout the year, and across the seasons. Oligo Husty, fall. When cool breezes blow and leaves fall, we say Ojali Helika. As shell shakers dance all night around the fire, and burnt cedar's scent drifts upward during the great new moon ceremony, as we clean our houses, wear new clothes, enjoy a feast, and forget old quarrels to celebrate Cherokee New Year. While we collect buckbrush and honeysuckle to weave baskets, to remember our ancestors who suffered hardship and loss on the Trail of Tears, and to have hope as our Elise, Grandma, cradles the newest member of the family and reveals his Cherokee name. Gola, winter. As bears sleep deep and snow blankets the ground, we say Ojala Helika, while elders share stories and we savor buttery bean bread and savory steamy hominy soup. When we feed our animal and bird friends, as older children teach the younger ones how to make cornhusk dolls and play cane flutes, while we gather to remember an uncle who has passed on, as men cuddle babies and sing traditional lullabies in Jaliki, Cherokee. Gogiye, spring. When showers fill streams and shoots spring up, we say Ojali Helika, while men sing asking for thunder and lightning's protection for the emerging sprouts that women tend. As we gather wild onions, spring's first food, and serve them with hen's eggs. As we practice patience to sew pucker toe moccasins and coil clay to build beautiful pots. As we plant ani, strawberries, an ancestral story's sweet-smelling reminder not to argue with each other. As we embrace a clan relative heading off to serve our country. Gogi, summer. As the crops mature and the sun scorches, we say, Ojali Helika. When we grasp our gigs and wade into the cool creek to catch crawdads for supper. As we sink our teeth into the season's first harvest at the green corn ceremony. While we click-clack sticks, chase a small ball, and fling it high at the stickball game pole. When we recall our ancestors' sacrifices to preserve our way of life. To celebrate Nulis Talidola, history, and listen to our tribal leaders speak at Cherokee National Holiday. Every day, every season, Ojali Helika, we are grateful.
It is the custom in this church each week to share the things that are on our hearts, our joys or our sorrows. As we do so, we place stones in the chalice bowl. This morning we have one joy, one great joy. For the successful congregational meeting last week, congratulations to our senior minister-elect, and congratulations to you, the gathered congregation, on the process by which you made this decision. If you would like to add a stone to the chalice this morning, please feel free to put your name in the chat or simply put an asterisk so we know to think of you, and I will add stones for you. We hold these things that have been named and those that are unnamed with love. If you will join me as we light our chalice. With hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love.
Robin's student said, "No one would understand to kiss the grain of rice." And I agree, not many of us would kiss a grain of rice. Indeed, our grocery stores are plentifully stocked, a bounty of products, always being restocked to never show a lack of anything. It's hard to think of gratitude when the shelves are stocked so full. Is it easier to be grateful when there is less? Because we might have some generational memory of what it meant to be hungry and to not have enough. And in these times of COVID and unemployment and tragic losses, where is our gratitude and how do we feel that gratitude? Robin has written down the guidelines for an Indigenous tradition of the honorable harvest. Even though they are not written down or evenly consistently spoken of as a whole, they are reinforced in small acts of daily life. The first one reads, "Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them." But do we know the way of the plants and the animals who take care of us by providing nutrition for our bodies or medicine for our ailments? Y'all might remember when I shared about the pecan trees before. Learning about the ways of the pecan trees has changed how I feel about pecans. And I do take care of my pecan tree. I love it and I care for it, and sometimes I even sing to it. But at the grocery store, it's so much harder to think this way. Next, introduce yourself. be accountable as the one coming asking for life. The Indigenous way is to introduce yourself to the forest, the field, the garden you come to harvest. Let them know you are who is coming, who is asking for them to give their life for yours. I tried this in the grocery store. As I entered the produce section at Rouse's, there was such an array of vegetables, greens and yellows and reds and purples and whites and blues. And I just scanned them, recognizing them as who they were. And I made my harvest, my selection, and it felt different. It felt more honorable, more respectful, more aware of the offering of the vegetables and the people who brought those vegetables to my easy harvest. But in the canned food and packaged foods aisle, I could not find a way to do this. The lives in those cans were too separated from my own. Couldn't find a way to connect with them in the same way. Ask permission before taking and abide by the answer. When Robin is harvesting, she asks permission to show respect for the personhood of the plant, but it is also an assessment of the well-being of the population of plants. Her analytical left side of the brain has all the sciencey stuff to help determine if it's okay to begin harvest, or if the plants need longer together to increase the harvest and protect the land. Her right side of the brain is listening for something else, a sense of generosity, an open-handed radiance that says, "Take me," or sometimes a tight-lipped recalcitrance that makes her put her trowel away. What if the answer you hear when you go harvest is no? Have you heard a no when you harvest, either in your garden or in the market or in a mall? Do you hear the yeses? Sometimes I do. Sometimes the no is really about money. No, you don't need another pair of yoga pants. How different it would feel to look at pants in the mall and try and retrace them to their personhood. Did they start out as a plant? Which one? Cotton? The silk from a worm? Is spandex a plant? Where have these pants been along the way? A factory? Who sewed them? A machine on autopilot? Or guided by the hands of a worker? Where did they go then? Packed into a box? Made of cardboard? Where did that cardboard come from? What type of tree gave its life for that box? Was it a pecan tree? Never take the first, never take the last. Robin shares a story of a medicine woman who was going to make her rounds and wanted to make sure she had all of the plants and medicines she needed. She wanted some snake root, and she hunted in the forest. She finally found a plant, and she looked around for more, but there was no more near there. And she knew she couldn't take the first, in keeping with the honorable harvest. So she continued looking, but came up empty. She sighed as she made her way home, empty-handed. And then she realized she had left her little shovel, and she went back to find it. She saw its little red handle sticking up, and just to the right of it, another clump of snake root. She introduced herself, and listened, and heard the yes, and she tucked some away in her pouch. And sure enough, on her rounds, there was a woman who needed the medicine from the snake root plant, and the medicine woman was able to pass on the gift.
Listening is not an act of the ear. Listening is an act of the heart. In these times when so much speaks, outrage, anger, disillusionment, rage is a constant cry. Derision has found his voice. The despair of the fair and faithful speaks fast and often. The whisper of despair grows into a keening lament. Open our hearts to the real fears of those who have known hate, because they are our guides to its insidious expansiveness. Open our memories to those ancestors of our spirits who were love seekers, peacemakers, truth guiders, system questioners. And listen, because listening is an act of our hearts. Do not ignore the soul pain of the ones who move through the hardest nights, who face denial of their rights and the desecration of their humanity. Do not forget those too dispossessed of a language of mastery and the countless forms of life who do not count humanity as their family, and yet who are within our larger circle of interdependence. Open our hearts to the true threats that many feel. Open our minds to the anguish of those who need accompaniment. Open our memories to those who came before us and taught us how to create new forms of love out of old, worn patterns. And listen, because listening is an act of our hearts. Listening is an act of our hearts.
Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. I noticed on my calendar that shows the holidays that Black Friday is shown as a holiday. I scoffed and growled because this one really gets me in many ways. You may have seen movies that show up around holiday time where parents are anxiously trying to find a doll or action figure that has been highly marketed and highly coveted. And marketed in a way that you will have to fight to get one of those coveted items. And after that item is found and purchased and wrapped and given, how long is it coveted after that? Black Friday has an interesting history and has grown in ways that seem to disrespect the honorable harvest. Most of the growth began in the early 2000s with stores opening at 6 a.m. But now some large retail stores are opening at midnight to invite in the eager shoppers. And during COVID, I've noticed that our Black Friday sales are being spread out over the whole month. You've probably seen pictures of a mob of shoppers clustered at the doors, waiting for them to open, and then running through the stores to find those coveted items. They are probably not listening to the guidelines of never take the first, never take the last, take only what you need, take only that which is given. Black Friday is also used as a term to indicate when a store has moved out of the red, an accounting term, and moved into the black, meaning that they are no longer in danger of losing money, but are indeed making money. But the term being in the black goes back farther than that. The term was used by white landowners and slaveholders who would talk to each other about their status. And if they were making more money, it was because they were in the black, meaning that they owned black people and it was profitable. Our words matter, our history matters, and Black lives matter. Never take more than half, leave some for others. My home congregation had an outdoor covenant group back before the storm and the federal flood. And we would go blueberry picking together on the North Shore. And I remembered the rows and rows of blueberry bushes, so full and bursting of blueberries, and cramming them into my mouth with one hand, while the other hand tickled more blueberries from the bushes down into my bucket. And I also remember that some of the rows were roped off. Maybe they had been over-harvested or were needing more time to ripen. But those farmers must have been following some honorable harvest guidelines as well. And I love picking blueberries so much that at my house I planted 5 blueberry bushes. And I took such care of them. I talked to them, I gave them fish guts and orange peels, and set up irrigation for them. I touched their leaves and encouraged their growth. I hummed to them. And I was so elated when I saw those little flowers bursting out. And then I could see the small ball of fruit forming where the flowers fell off. And I would come out another day and see those berries getting bigger, but still green. And another day they would turn slightly pink. Another day or two they were definitely showing signs of blueness. Just another day or so. And I loved them, and I greeted them. And the next day I went out to see how they were doing. And all these birds scattered up from the bushes. No! And I ran to the bushes, and the birds had for sure eaten almost all the blueberries. I hunted around, and I found a few, and I ate them, but kind of angrily, and maybe with a little bitterness. Maybe the blueberries were bitter. But I remember thinking, I love the birds, and I want to share with the birds, but not all of my blueberries. Those birds were not following the honorable harvest either. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. I was thinking about harm on this one. Where do I cause the most harm in my life? Sometimes it is to me. I've been thinking about the honorable harvest and how I harvest time in my life. I have 3 part-time jobs where one requires travel. I'm in seminary school full-time, which requires some travel, and doing a part-time internship here at church. And I also have work with anti-racist communities like European Descent, DISSENT, which is a group of white anti-racist people who have been through the Undoing Racism training of the People's Institute and have been organizing together for 40 years to try and undo what has been done to us in our communities around racism. But there isn't a whole lot of time left in there, and the requests for my time keep coming, and the invites for fun stuff keep coming, even during COVID, because we figured out how to be together in safe ways. And it is so very, very hard to say no. My life coach gave me a tip. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that is definitely helping, certainly. And I feel like I have been saying no an awful lot. And I look at my calendar and I say, who the heck is saying yes all the time? Because it's kind of full. I've also been thinking about this concept of lazy versus hard worker. We have such distaste for lazy people who we think are wasting our tax dollars, who aren't doing their share. Even the word lazy brings up images in my head, maybe yours too. And yet, there are times when I have to fight against the work ethic to always be producing, always making value, always proving my worth. And I have learned to rest and be lazy. We think of hard work. We all may say, I worked hard to get where I am. Or to someone else, we might say, you just have to work hard, just keep working hard and you will get there. But our systems and institutions don't treat us all the same. And I know plenty of people who work so hard and are still caught in the cycle of poverty so inherent in our society. And I'm tired of working hard. Why do we have to work hard? Why can't we just work? Why must we overwork, overschedule, overcontribute? I now want to work less and do more. Work less and see more. Work less and listen more. Work less and laugh more. A new way to harvest my time.
There are no peacocks on Venus, no oak trees or water lilies on Jupiter, no squirrels or whales or figs on Mercury, no anchovies on the moon. And inside the rings of Saturn, there is no species that makes poems and intercontinental missiles. 8 wasted planets, several dozen wasted moons, and all the sun's half-lighted entourage. One unbelievable blue and white exception. This breeding, feeding, bleeding, cloud peekaboo Earth is not dead as a diamond. This splendid speck, this DNA experiment station, where life seems somehow to have designed or assembled itself, where chance and choice play at survival and extinction, where molecules beget molecules, and mistakes in the begetting maybe be inconsequential or lethal or lucky, where life everywhere eats life and reproduction usually outpaces cannibalism. This bloody paradise, where under the northern lights, sitting choirs of white wolves howl across the firmament, their chills, Te Deums, where in lower attitudes, matter more articulate gets a chance at consciousness and invents the Messiah or the Marseillaise, Ride of the Valkyries, or Rhapsody in Blue. This great blue pilgrim gyroscope, warmer than Mars, cooler than Venus, old turner of temperature nights and days, this best place of all reachable worlds, this blessed speck.
As we enter into a time of prayer and meditation during a holiday season that will be unlike any other we may have known, and our hearts may be heavy or tired or lifting up, I would like to now offer us the opportunity to close our eyes as we delve into some of our other senses. That sense of smell and touch that can be so heightened during end of the year holiday happenings. Do you remember how pumpkins smell when you are carving them? How the stringy goo feels as it runs through your fingers? How hard and slippery the seeds feel in your hand? How about the smell of sulfur if you use matches to light candles, or the scents of those candles? When you are making stuffing or dressing, can you smell the power of the onions, the celery, or how the sage smells as you add it in? Can you taste it even now? How about the smell of mulled wine, or hot chocolate with marshmallows on top, or hot toddies? Do you harvest anything from your garden at this time of year? What might you smell as you harvest? Are there herbs that you pick, like sweet basil or oregano or rosemary that wafts its way into your senses? Or the zest of satsumas and oranges as you burst their peels? Have you ever used materials from your garden to wrap presents? If so, what do those fibers feel like in your hands as you enclose a gift in their wrappings? Do they feel tender or unwieldy or fragile? Take a moment at this time to remember and feel the smells you love and share with your communities during this time of the year. We hold each other in love as we navigate a new way of being together this holiday season.
It's become increasingly common in Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country for these weeks leading up to Christmas Day to be celebrated with a traditional symbol, the Advent Wreath. This wreath and the period of Advent that it symbolizes was summarized this way by my colleague in Unitarian Universalist ministry, the Reverend Erica Hewitt. She writes that many years ago, thousands of years ago, people in the northern hemispheres were thought to have gathered wreaths of evergreen and to have lit fires to symbolize their hope in the coming spring and renewed light. The custom was kept alive by Christians, and ever since the 16th century, the Advent wreath had gradually spread across many parts of the world. Today, Advent is that period of 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. It's also the time when days are shortest, when cold settles in, and when the people need cheer brought by the promise of light and warmth. As we light one more candle each Sunday, the Advent wreath symbolizes our waiting experience. Week by week, the candles remind us that the darkness of fear and hopelessness recedes as more and more light is shed into the world. The flame of each new candle reminds us that more is yet to come. So on this first Sunday of Advent, we light this first candle, candle of hope, with the words of Macria Whitaker, a Benedictine monastic. She writes, "I was just thinking one morning during prayer, how much alike hope and baking powder are, quietly getting what is best in me to rise, awakening the hint of eternity within. So may this candle awaken the best in us. May it connect us to the eternal and may it give light to our hope.
Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Kiss that grain of rice. I am working on this, and I find that I have enough money that most of my needs are met, and often I have enough to purchase more than I need, and I see that a lot of that goes to waste and ends up having no value. Share. Yes, share. We are all taught this as young people. Sharing is caring. The next year, after those darn birds had eaten my harvest of blueberries without me, I didn't spend as much time with the bushes. It felt like a bit of a battle. I thought of wrapping them up in netting, but then I also thought, what a treat it must be to those birds to have those sweet berries. So I shared. But in future years, I didn't tend to those bushes, and sure enough, they died off on their own. And I'm sure the birds miss them, like I do. But I stopped caring for the plants and stopped sharing because I wasn't getting to share in the harvest. Give thanks for what you have been given. Certainly, we thank the earth and the land and the waters and the farmers and immigrant workers who harvest our food for us, and the grocery clerks who stock those produce aisles. Who else do we need to thank? And how do we thank them? Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. The Indigenous way is to offer the ground where you are harvesting a few leaves of tobacco. It is giving a gift to the land in gratitude for the gifts the land is giving you. We exchange gifts this time of year with each other, with our family and friends and co-workers. But how do we give gifts back to the earth, to the land, to the harvesters, to express gratitude? I'm still working on how to do this one, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. Well, we certainly have a lot of work to do on this one, don't we? We know the continued impacts of climate change across the southern part of this country. Major flooding, more hurricanes than usual, lands that have been encroached on and continue to be encroached upon. How do we sustain the ones who sustain us so that our earth will last forever?
Now begins our art interlude, where we get to see the creations we have made during the pandemic. I have loved seeing what you have sent, and I want more. Send me more at intern@unitarianchurchbr.org. Now first, I want to share the Shakespeare Summer from Susan Beversluis. She's had an interest in Shakespeare for many years, and when it became obvious that her granddaughters, Matilda, who's 9, and Eliza, who's 12, would not be able to have a normal summer at camp and being with their friends, she devised Grandma's Shakespeare Camp. She bought them a set of books for kids with Shakespeare's plays, and each week they read the plot summaries, and Susan gave them a handout with the locations, the cast of characters, and famous quotes. They talked about the plot and the themes, the main characters, and usually had some kind of an activity, like the Royal Shakespeare Company actor warm-ups, coloring, drawing, flower identification, vocabulary, memorization of passages, the Globe Theater, writing a diary for a character, understanding Shakespeare's jokes, etc. When school started back up, she told them they would have to conclude the camp, but they protested, so Susan suggested they perform a Shakespeare play. They were all in. So Susan wrote a 16-page, one-act, 5-scene play called The Sister's Tale, about two sisters who leave home and go to the swamp in order to have an adventure, as the coronavirus had made them feel hemmed in. In the end, after visits in the shanty from a witch, a jester, their little brother Thomas, who's age 4, a ghost, and a fairy, they decided they'd had a beautiful adventure, but they missed their parents and are ready to return home. How wonderful is that? Now sit back and enjoy the art of your community with music from Lee Hartman.
First of all, I'm pleased to make this announcement as a part of the offering ask as your senior minister-elect. One of the very first things, Eric and I talked about this, one of the very first things that both of us agreed I should do, or we should do, is now that the church has some clarity about the direction it wants to go, is to shore up its financial stability. Wait, don't leave. I was going to make like good move, so wait, let's do it again. So talk about the financial security. All right, pretend that's the computer moving. Anyway, don't go. Stay with us. So the thing is, a lot of people, probably the number one question people ask me throughout candidating week is, how stable is the church? How financially stable? How can we make it through this? And having seen the numbers and having seen the pledges, the answer is an unequivocal probably. So let me say that a different way. This church is going to be fine when this whole dumb pandemic is over. It will be just fine. The question is, how much of a hit will we take in the meantime? So here is what, we had sent out an ask that most of you should have gotten by now, but it's essentially three things. And we just need you to know about them, that these are the three things that the pandemic is affecting this church in terms of its short-term sustainability. First, the 2020 budget is short for three reasons. One, we actually approved a short budget by about $70,000, and we promised to do a second stewardship drive in April. The pandemic hit, and we didn't do that stewardship drive. So we already had a short budget, and we had planned to do an auction for $15,000. That isn't in the budget, and we didn't have a chance to. We didn't do that, so that income isn't there. And we expected $18,000 in offering gifts, and there was only about $2,000 to $3,000 that came in. Because there's something about sitting in church every week where someone hands you a bursar and you put a gift in and move it on. It's a lot harder to go on your phone, which you can do in a minute if you really want to. Go on your phone and intentionally give to the church. So the first thing we need gifts to the 2020 budget to help us cover some of the shortfall. We did get a PPP loan that covers some of it, but if you made it through the pandemic so far relatively financially intact, consider giving to the an extra gift to the 2020 budget. Second ask that we need is, if we have a good stewardship drive this year, based on the vaccine, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I've been reading way more than I want to about epidemiological impacts. If we can make it through this pandemic with a good budget going into 2021, when we get back together, the energy is going to be through the roof. People are going to be excited. This church is going to be doing exciting things. And so it means those of you who are able to give right now, give. Now, I'm recording this a couple days early. So as of the recording, 74 of you increased your pledges for a total of 50,000 extra in pledge income. That's phenomenal. We still have between 150 to 250 pledges out. So that means if you have your pledge out, would you consider raising your pledge? Almost every religious organization has gotten back together to meet in person. We decided not to. We decided that because we thought public health and your health and your being alive to make it through this was a religious value greater than meeting in a more comfortable, more exciting, better worship experience. It's not about Leslie's. Leslie's service is great. I'm just talking about, in general, meeting in person is superior to meeting online. But we decided to do the more uncomfortable thing because it was better for you and better for this city and better for this world. Which means those of us who are watching this, we got to give a little more so that we can make it through. So if you can increase your pledge at all this year, please consider doing it. We still got to get another $35,000 to $60,000 out of the people who haven't pledged on top of last year. So if everyone who pledged last year pledges this year and we can get that increase, we'll be able to get better compensation for the staff, better health insurance for the staff. We'll be able to get a tech person to help. So I'm not making this video on my phone, recorded on 2 little clips on my laptop, and then I'm going to upload to a OneDrive and manually edit myself. We could hire someone to do that. You could do that as a gift to the staff, so we don't have to do that stuff anymore. I mean, that's sort of lagniappe at the end of the budget. We're not there yet. But just consider about increasing your pledge. Next year, the pledge drive is going to be great. People are going to be so happy to be together. We're going to be giving. This year, we need you. And then the third thing, when the pandemic hit, every month we share the cash offering of the plate. And so what we need, so we didn't do that during the whole pandemic. So every single week, for the next 2 months, we're going to share the plate, which means we need you. I don't want us to, if we got $2,000 over 8 months, that's not a lot per week. I don't want to split the plate for like $50 with some other organization we think is doing good works. We need to share the plate with organizations throughout this holiday season and beyond that are doing good work. So we really need you to go onto the website, get on your phone. You can, there's a texting number. I'm sure they're going to type it into the chat. All sorts of ways for you to give so that we can share, because we owe it to these other, I mean, we don't technically owe it, but we owe it to these other organizations to help them. We have a relationship with a lot of them. So if you could be very generous, either through the church or on your own, to help these organizations get through, that would be great. This is an interesting Sunday. You are watching the service right now of one of our next all-star ministers. She doesn't know I'm going to say that, so she's just watching this either at the rehearsal or live and going, oh, God, there he goes. But I'm serious. This church is helping a minister learn to be a better minister. You are doing that. You helped me form. You helped thousands and thousands of people make this world better. So I'll ask you to give very generously. Consider doing the three things that we asked.
And so, as Nathan has said, there are several ways you can give. You can go to unitarianbr.org/give. You can text the word assist to 833-796-0353. And as Nathan told us, we are returning to the spiritual discipline of sharing our plate. This week's offering will be shared with our Asylum Assistance Program. If you would like to have your donation shared, please note on your check or in your offering, shared plate offering. This church and all charitable organizations survive because of the generosity of those people who love them. As has been given to us, let us share generously with others.
Reading the guidelines from the Honorable Harvest makes so much sense in terms of harvesting from the land and harvesting from the animals. But at this time of year, as we begin to harvest from stores and malls to buy presents, can we take these guidelines with us? When you go shopping for holiday presents, can you offer a gift, a small song of gratitude, or recognize the personhood in the materials of the gift? What do you use to wrap presents? Have you ever used materials from the garden to wrap a present? How do you feel as you are gathering and wrapping presents? Excited, grateful, obligated, tired, silly, satisfied, confused? Perhaps the guidelines of the Honorable Harvest can change how we connect with the harvest and the gifting. Can we use these same guidelines with our bodies and self-care?
What would it feel like to ask permission of our body before feeding it? Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Have you tried asking your body for permission before stepping on a scale? What if you heard a no? And what about other forms of harvest? When doing justice work, we receive from that harvest as well. The fellowship of community working together on a goal, on a new way of being. As we work towards that goal in an anti-racist, anti-oppressive way, we start to feel what that new way of being might feel like. We start feeling that sense of liberation. And what a gift. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. When doing justice work, we should think about the ones who came before us and think about how we can care for them as we care for ourselves and our planet. I've been thinking about what it would feel like to sing songs of gratitude when I am harvesting, either from my herb garden or when I am shopping. Some song that I can use as a ritual to remind me that even in the store, I am harvesting. I probably won't sing it out loud, but I just might. May these teachings of the Indigenous people remind us and guide us as we care for our planet, as we care for each other, and as we care for ourselves. Amen. Ashe. Ohali Haliga. And blessed be.
Within each of our hearts there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help, both in body and in spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passions to help heal our world. Spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. Go in peace, go in love. The worship is ended. Let the service begin.